Okay, well, welcome everyone to our artist panel discussion for the 32nd annual All Florida Juried Art Show. I'd like to thank all of the artists who are participating for joining us today, as well as our moderator, Duncan Hurd. Duncan is a current board member here with us at Martin Arts and has been for the last few years. We invited him to run this discussion last year, and he did such a fantastic job. We asked him to return this year. Duncan is the owner of 2 local frame shops in town. He does a wonderful job. So if you're ever here and need something framed, we hope that you will see him at either the Gilt Complex or Friendly Framer. As you can see from his background, he has a beautiful selection, and that is just the tip of the iceberg over there. So welcome to everybody. If you are not one of the participating artists with the panel discussion tonight, we ask that you keep your microphones on mute and, if possible, turn your cameras off while the discussion is going on. And then at the end, once we've gone through everything and we're in the question and answer feature time, you can feel free to turn those on and unmute. But during the discussion, if you have a question and you want to make sure that it's covered and not forgotten, go ahead and use the chat box feature and just type it right in, and we'll read through those as they come in at the end. And we are recording this to be shared on our website and possibly social media. So just so everybody knows that, we will begin now. Duncan, I let you take it away.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. I'd like to welcome those who have joined us, as well as our panelists, our artists who are joining the panel discussion, as well as those who we won't see live, but many I know will watch the recorded version of this discussion. So welcome to you all as well. What I'd like to do first is just go around the room, so to speak, although in this case we're going around the state, and ask you all to introduce yourselves. And then what we'll do is we're going to ask each artist to discuss their work, which was awarded either a prize or an honorable mention by the juror. And then we'll go on from there with our general discussion. So Janet, let's start with you.
Hello.
Hi.
I live in Gulfport, Florida on the West Coast. And I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
How long have you been creating? I assume for a while. Yes,
quite a few years. Yeah. I guess I can tell my age by saying I graduated from college in 1976. So that tells you something there. And but the time goes so fast. I can't believe it. Yeah, just still painting along. That's my passion, is painting.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And Bill?
Hi, I live in Port St. Lucie. I moved to Port St. Lucie from Fairbanks, Alaska in 2009. And spent about 3 years back up there and then down here. I go there every summer to paint. And I'm probably better known as a painter of Alaskan landscapes. But the work I have in the show is a woodcut, and I've done, I estimate, about 2/3 of a cord of wood blocks in my lifetime.
Terrific. Well, welcome to the neighborhood, I should say.
Thank you very much. Lovely show.
And Jamie?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So I reside in West Palm Beach. Recently moved down here from upstate New York region. The work that I do is a combination of sculpture and painting, installation work. A lot of that is influenced from my background in school was welding and foundry and sculpture. And then after grad school, I did not quite sure know what direction I want to go in. So I ended up actually doing residencies in Europe and actually taught myself how to paint by applying some basic sculpture techniques and breaking down that foundation. And then here I am now combining painting, sculpture, and creating installation work. And the piece is obviously influenced by a lot of the landscape and my environment and location. So South Florida has a big impact upon my work and will continue to be.
Terrific. Thank you for that. And Sarah, tell us about yourself.
Hi. I live in Tallahassee, Florida now. Fairly new to the area. I moved down here from Baltimore, where I was at MICA before. And I am a mixed media artist, sort of between fibers and painting. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And finally, Marty.
Hi, my name's Marty Dunn, and I'm a third generation artist. My father was an illustrator, and my grandmother was a watercolorist. So I guess you say I come by it honestly. I've been pretty much exclusively working in oils for the past 13, almost 14 years now. And I live on the West Coast, just south of Tampa Bay in Bradenton, Florida.
And you survived.
Oh man. This is, by all counts and all measures, this was the worst storm that's ever struck the west side of Florida.
Yeah.
And the flooding was what was so devastating. We're still digging ourselves out, and it's been almost a month.
I'm sure you are. Well,
So, yeah.
God bless you and good luck with all of that.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do now is have each of you in turn discuss the work of art that you submitted and that was selected. For those listening, we're going to go in order of placement. We're going to talk about the first place selection first, followed by second and third, and then our honorable mentions, which we'll do alphabetically. So since you're all, we're just on Marty, Jennifer is going to, at this time, bring up your piece called Phobos. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes.
So if you could describe that for us and talk about this piece as well as your art in general.
Please join us.
Sure. Phobos. I was intrigued by the idea that the word Phobos is a binary, that it has two rather different meanings. It means an unreasoning fear, which is where we get the word phobia, but it also means awe or reverence. And in the painting, what I was after, what I started with was I wanted to have an event occurring outside the field of the view of the viewer, but responding to that event, there would be two groups of people: the ones who have an unreasoning fear, and then the ones who are approaching it with awe and respect. And then the rest of the time, this was one of the longest paintings that I ever worked on. It took a good 3 months or so to complete, because I kept putting characters in and then taking them back out again. It was like, who, what really defines somebody who approaches something that's scary with awe and respect, as opposed to just running away from it. And then I read a poem. It's called "The True Love" by David White. It's written on the back of the painting. That's something else that I do when I'm working on a painting, and I read something that's kind of inspiring or directive, then I'll write it on the back of the painting. Mm-hmm. And I got that idea from Frida Kahlo. Actually, she when she sold her first painting, she had a party and she had everybody that she cared about write something on the back of the painting before she let it go. And I thought, that's a really cool idea. So anyway, I wrote the poem on the back of it along with a couple of other things. And the thing about the poem that really struck me was that somewhere along in it, he talks about getting out of the boat and stepping out onto the waters, kind of biblically. And but then he says, maybe the reason that you don't sink is because you're just tired of drowning. Maybe that's all there is to it. Maybe you just don't want to drown anymore. So the people that ended up in the front of the painting were all ones that, in retrospect, showed some degree of naivete, oppression, and innocence, or innocence, at least 2 out of the 3. And that's how it came to its final version.
I was intrigued by the woman in the background who appears to be trotting and looking back. And without your explanation, I had absolutely no idea what was going on. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we had all these explanations for every work of art we ever see in our life? But we have to just sit there and wonder, and that's part of the attraction of the art in any event.
Certainly is. I went through a phase where I didn't put any descriptors next to my paintings because this one lady had written a poem about one of the paintings, and it had nothing to do with what I had thought when I did the painting. And I thought, you know, maybe I'm just robbing people of being able to use their imaginations if I get too descriptive. So anyway, I'm back doing descriptors again because it's fun. And but still, there's that part where people view it and they come away with something entirely different than what you intended. And I love that part too.
I would ask anybody who's watching or listening to refrain from going to see this work of art and lifting it off the wall to see the poem on the back. All righty, thank you, Marty. And Sarah. Sarah won 2nd place. And Jennifer is going to bring up her piece right there.
Yeah.
So tell us about this, Sarah.
Yes. So this piece is part of a long series of works that started in 2020 as the result of a loss of a very close loved one. So all of my work is, you know, the root source of it really is a deep grief. But considering, you know, what is left when a loved one leaves us, you know, it's one of those things in life that's coming for us all many times over. And you know, what is the space for tenderness? And what does care look like? Care for yourself, care for those around you who are also dealing with the loss, and how do we manage to move forward? And during that time, I read, was introduced to, and then later read the work of Dr. Jessica Benjamin, who is a psychotherapist, who wrote this great book called Intersubjectivity and the Third. And her idea is that the third is this sort of living space or entity that's created between 2 people when they really see and understand one another, when they have a really deep connection and a relationship. And I loved this idea of like this living thing that is your relationship, because a relationship is so much that it's so much it's like a garden that needs tending always. So just thinking about all of these things swirling around, and then taking different materials and seeing how those relationships come about, sort of poetically represented all the things that I was dealing with at the time. Then I'm still, you know, working through.
Would you describe the placement of the materials as somewhat abstract? Is it meant to depict something, or what? Again,
Yeah.
I will highlight the fact that I am approaching this as an art lover, not as an art professional.
Yeah, so they are intentionally ambiguous. Like they almost look like they could be some kind of a creature or some of my works often look very close to figurative, but they're in between. And that is purposeful. I'll often do most of the work on one side of fabric and allow it to bleed through or stitch through, and then only show the reverse side, so you're getting the impression of what's coming from behind. But yeah, so the original shape, though, I'll just like share maybe what I shouldn't, but the original shapes do come from my dog.
Okay.
Yeah, he just was sort of this stand-in for me.
I love that you build purposefully, make it imperfect.
Mhm.
I read somewhere where you show the knots and the threading, and where others might be a little bit more refined in that respect.
Mhm.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
Well, I guess it's a few things, really, to just be vulnerable and show the messiness of, what it is you're going through. But also, there is this separate idea that I've been thinking about for a while, that comes from a text on fiber arts and the way that when fiber arts were first integrated into the quote unquote high arts, or first blended with painting, it was always considered as a way to add to the painting rather than elevate fiber art.
Mhm.
So it's like modifying or elevating the masculine art rather than the feminine art, the traditionally feminine art. So I loved the idea of rejecting that hierarchy, rejecting that what we're told is the refined or proper way to use these materials.
Nice. Thank you for that. And I
Mhm.
failed to mention this for those who are looking at this. The title of the piece is That Which Heals May Also Poison.
Mhm.
So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Jamie, you're next. Third place winner. This is a multimedia piece titled Solace Part 1. So Jamie, if you could describe this for us.
Sure. Out of the installation work that I do, this is one of the more direct ones that has to do, first of all, being influenced by like the surroundings, nature. Once again, my location, moving to South Florida and being inspired and turning to nature, to the landscape first. So I just started out with an oil painting while exploring. Actually my first Airbnb before I found an apartment when I left to move, so I usually just go out, and I was just looking for some kind of peace or calmness. And this was like it was a banana tree right outside of my Airbnb. So sometimes, I go far away to look for things. Sometimes things that you're looking for right underneath your nose that you don't know. So I just wanted to kind of go out and basically, go out and explore what was right in front of me as far as the nature and landscape goes. And then through that, all my installations always start with some type of inspired landscape painting or nature painting, and then they kind of explode out into getting more involved into kind of like the architectural or design qualities of the location that I live in. So having to, while first being new to West Palm Beach in Florida, I noticed that there was a lot of Spanish colonial architectural elements and tile work that reminded me and was reminiscent of residencies that I've done in Portugal and Spain. So I was kind of bringing some of those influences from Portugal and Spain that I was already experimenting with, and I was finding them pop up here in West Palm Beach and South Florida. So I just kind of end up incorporating those elements into, like with the palms. And then at a local park that we went to, there was like these, I forgot what the name, it's like a mallard type of duck that I've never seen before, that we don't have in the Northeast where I moved from. And then, and in the pond, it's a banana plant, which I thought was like one of the most weirdest, crazy things that I've ever seen. And then just some of the surrounding nature in the parks, not too far from my house. And I'm a big long distance runner, so I love to be around nature, always influenced by that. And one thing is that I've always become interested in kind of taking the 2D canvas off the wall in the more traditional setting and then mixing it in with all these other type of elements. And a lot of my work usually just involves, instead of like using, right now in my work, I'm not using figures. So I've decided to go along with using the animals in nature to basically play out narratives that sometimes they might mean something and sometimes they just might be playful. And this is one of those ones where it's more about a little bit of humor and being playful. There's no direct message with the interaction of animals that I had, that I have a direct intent or agenda. So it's more like kind of a fun piece and kind of just putting together elements of inspiration of South Florida to begin with. And, this is a presentation of that.
I saw it a couple days ago and then again today, and I was fascinated by the little pond you have in. You can't really tell from this photograph, but there's a little pond with water and things in it, and also the tile. I assume that's Spanish tile or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fascinating piece, and quite frankly, made more fascinating by your explanation. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bill, you're up next.
Okay.
Bill Brody's piece is titled, I'll stay there for just a second. For those who are listening in and didn't get the background, Lisbeth Assanio was an honorable mention for this piece titled Serenity 2. And unfortunately, she could not make it today because she's having internet problems. Jennifer, I think you said because of where she lives in the southwest part of the state, which we have a great deal of understanding for at this point. So
yes, after effect of Hurricane Ian in her area.
yeah.
Yes.
So
and just to go back to Jamie's, those are Muscovy ducks.
Yes, that's it. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
And then next is Bill's piece called Conversation. So Bill, tell us what's happening.
Well, I like to play with a figure in ground, and since I think the ground, that is the background, is as important, as alive as the figure being what you're pointing at or thinking about. I did a drawing about a conversation between my wife and myself, where we were looking at each other, breathing on each other, reaching out to touch each other, and did a fairly detailed drawing on a block of wood and spent 4 months carving it.
Oh my.
The part of the meaning of this comes from thinking about what seeing is. I'm pretty sure that seeing involves the parts of the brain that deal with the body. So I think of seeing and drawing as a kind of reaching out with the mind's body. And I would like to say that this is somewhat unusual. The first half of my artistic life was all figurative, and the last half has been almost all landscape. But I keep my figurative hand in, so to speak, and did this fairly elaborate wood carving.
And when I first saw it, I thought there were multiple figures, and you saying it's only two with multiple parts of the same conversation.
Yes, multiple versions or visions of the same two figures, except I see that the genders switch from right to left and switch back and forth.
Yeah. And did you do this while you were still in Alaska, or since you've arrived here?
No, I did this in my garage in Port St. Lucie
Good for you.
and printed it. I have a studio near the expressway, about 6 miles from my house. That's where I do my printing and work that involves power tools, which too noisy and dirty to do it in my house.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It was nice to get a chance to show this.
And to talk about it.
Yes.
Well, Janet, we're going to finish not the conversation, but the discussion of the pieces. This is your work called Girls with Purposes, with Purses.
Yes. I like to go around and it's scary, but ask people if I can take their pictures so that I can use them in a painting. And especially during COVID, I was, pretty isolated. But when I did get out, if I saw somebody that was intriguing to me, I would ask them if I could take their picture and use them for a painting. And these two people, actually, I should back up and say, I grew up in the Maryland, DC area, and I got to go back to my hometown. And these people were in downtown DC sitting on a bench. And they were so intriguing, and they were wearing such wonderful clothes. I said, well, may I take your picture for a painting? And they said yes. And I think the idea behind the painting was painting people that you could talk to, like two figures you could actually pour your heart out to, and they would listen to you. And so, especially with the figure on the left, I just tried to make somebody where, especially in a lot of isolation, here's someone you can actually talk to. And as I went on with the painting and I looked at the photograph, one of the intriguing things about it was I realized that these were actually two men that were dressing up as women. And they, in a way that made it all the more compelling, that I just really wanted to capture their spirits the best I could. And they did happen to have these, it doesn't show so much in the painting, but they actually had some pretty big purses, which I didn't put into the painting. So that is what inspired the painting.
I was thinking that you're not afraid of color, but clearly that's what they were wearing. So these two folks equally were not afraid of color.
Oh, no, I think, truth be told, in real life, their colors may have been brighter than even in the painting. Even in this, especially this image that you see, they were even brighter, yes. And they told me they were artists, and then I realized this was their art form. So
okay.
Yeah.
Now, you asked permission to take the photo. Do you share the end result with them? Do you get their, I don't know, an email address and send them a photograph?
No, I do not.
Well,
especially because they're kind of symbols too for, kind of the mood or the inspiration. Like a lot of the photos I take I kind of use them for inspiration, for ideas or emotions that I want to convey in the painting. And so it's not like I'm one of those painters that wants to get the exact replica of you and then send it to you in the mail kind of person. So that's why I don't even even engage in that because people, people are very sensitive about how they look. So I don't even try to go there, to be honest with you.
All right. All right. Thank you. Jennifer, if you could come back and bring us all up, I appreciate that. I'm just thrilled with this discussion so far and these very thorough explanations of the art that you submitted. And now I just want to get into a general conversation, and feel free to jump in, and it's a little hard on Zoom because when you talk over somebody, but we'll do the best we can. But with your explanations, it makes this next question, I'm hoping, even more poignant. And that is, as you create your art, and this can go beyond just this one piece for this one show, but as you create your art, what is it that you're hoping for in terms of responses from people who are viewing it or experiencing it? Because different people experience art in different ways. So what is it that you are hoping for? Don't all talk at once.
I'll be glad to jump in.
Thank you, Marty.
And because this has been something that has occupied a lot of my thoughts here recently. And I think what I would really like more than anything else when someone walks away from one of my paintings is that they would have this feeling that something has been pointed out, but that no fingers have been pointed.
Does your other work include aspects like in Phobos? There's clearly something going on behind us. As I'm looking at this piece of art, the figures in the painting are looking past me at something else. So is that a common theme?
No, not really. In this particular painting, I wanted an event, but I didn't want the event to be something that was outside your imagination.
Mm-hmm. Who else wants to jump in? What are you hoping that people will take away from experiencing your art?
I'll jump in, Duncan. I hope that I always want to evoke an emotion, whether it's positive or negative based upon the installation and what goes into the particular work of art that creates the narrative. I always hope that people will get a sense of the familiar and unfamiliar, and that aesthetically that they are engaged to maybe see something that they've never seen before, and to leave my work with a familiarity and unfamiliarity with what is literally around you every day that you might notice and that you might not, and to have a little bit of mystery in there. Like I don't think I ever want to totally give anyone a full explanation or make everything so cut and clear. I always felt personally that the work that I always gravitated to was the work that in person that I remember, inspiring me to become an artist, was that kind of left a little bit of a mystery behind it. Whether I was with whatever that artist wanted me to interpret, there was no right or wrong. So I think that's what I shoot for, is just evoking that emotion and then a mystery to it. Mm-hmm. And it can be successful or unsuccessful, but I think the risk of putting your work and putting yourself out there, that's kind of the passion of being an artist. That makes sense.
Thank you. Who else?
I'll jump in. I do my work primarily because something moves me, and as I'm working on it, I get to the point where the work tells me what's wrong and I try to fix what's wrong. And in the end, the successful pieces are ones that people tell me stories about the work, what it means. And it turns out that they are always their stories, not mine.
Uh-huh.
So I love ambiguity.
Thank you. Sarah, Janet?
Yeah, I always hope that my work really will just hold space for whatever it is that the viewer needs, because that's what it does for me. And also, despite a lot of the time the root source of the piece being something like despair or grief, I do hope always, I feel like my job on this earth is to just add something beautiful. So I hope always that it is something beautiful. I mean, you know, everybody's aesthetic choices and tastes vary so much, but if they can get a little bit of joy out of it, then I think that would be a success for me.
I think it's particularly relevant because you led off when you were discussing your piece by saying that a lot of your work is touched by grief. And so to turn that grief into inspiration is inspiring in its own right, I would, at least for me.
I have to
Yeah.
actually say that when I'm creating the work, and maybe you all feel the same way, and you're hoping we're all hoping so much it will be a successful piece, that I don't think about, I can't think about if other people are going to like it or not, because I think that would just ruin the artistic process. I just have to make it and hope for the best and hope that other people will appreciate it or be moved by it. But I think once you start thinking about if this one's going to like it or that one's going to like it, you can really stifle your creativity.
Janet, I love the fact that as you're saying that, every other artist is just nodding their head saying, yep, I don't care what they think.
Well, you can, or you wouldn't like really go beyond what, you know, people say you should do or this or that. Yeah. Like in that painting I did with that woman's teeth. I was like, oh my God, look at her teeth. And then I was thinking, should I make her teeth all like really beautiful? And I was like, no, that's kind of how she was. So, you know.
Great. All right, next question. This is different. And the reason I'm asking this particular question is because I can only imagine that a lot of people who tune into this are curious about creativity. They're curious about art and your art in particular, but also about creativity in general. And that I'm a firm believer that everybody has creative bones in their body and they're either expressed or repressed. And different people are more successful or less successful. And half the time that's just a matter of luck. So what I want to ask you has to do with the creative process in your own life. But I really mean the process. So I'm going to throw an example out of my own, because I love to write. If I could be a full-time writer, I would do it. But in order to do that and be as creative as I need to be, I have this space I go to. And Bill, you mentioned your studio that's miles away from your home. But I have effectively a writing studio with pretty much nothing in it, other than a couple nice views out the window. And that's also important. So tell me about that. What gets you going when you wake up in the morning and say, I really feel creative today? What do you do? What environment do you create for yourself? Stump the
I-
panel on that one.
I try to get away from all other responsibilities.
Yeah,
That doesn't have to be physical. I pretty much obsessed with doing things that people might call creative. I don't think about them as being creative or not being creative. I just kind of obsessed with drawing or doodling or carving things or whatever. And I'll do that to an excess as far probably as my children or wife are concerned.
who else wants to jump in?
Talk about my space. It depends on where I am in a piece. So like at the beginning, I kind of have a ritual of cleaning my space. And my husband's on this call and he can attest to the fact that I'm a little bit of a hoarder of materials. I use a lot of found objects and found materials. So he's done a lot of eye rolling as I've like come home with bags and bags of fabric I found or something. Or like buttons or who knows. But so I'll like clean my space, and then while the piece is underway, it's just can I swear? It's a I won't swear. It's a mess. It just like everything devolves until it's done, and then I have to clean it all up and put it all the way again. So I can. It's almost like you gotta like cleanse your palate, or
Uh-huh.
after a heavy meal or something.
You say that, and Jamie, I can imagine what it's like for you because you put so much into that. It's three-dimensional, it's all kinds of found object. I assume they're found.
No, everything is made. So like there are absolutely zero found objects. That's really important in the work. So everything is either cast or recreated or carved or sculpted out of another material. So like for instance, the leaves on the ground, those are actual leaves that I would walk past on my way to work and just looking at them every day and being like, wow, these are like really interesting looking leaves. So I decided to take a couple of them into the studio. And for me, like it's this process early on that it's almost like a ritual of having to find the object, but then it has to go through this process through my own creative process of recreating it so that it's linked to me.
Mhm.
So that, because to me, then it actually becomes a work of art. And I just think that with a sculpture background and the traditional way that I was brought up is that there was this detachment from the found object to then somehow make these objects your own unique objects. So to me, it's critical that that everything has to go through a process where it has to be recreated by me. And then it's painted or it's presented to look like the original object, but there are absolutely zero found objects. Everything is made out of a series of materials or cast and then painted by me hand. So
Wow.
to me, that process is critical.
amazing.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, but that's the, that is the most important aspect of the process of the artist in the studio for me is that.
Janet, Marty, do you have anything to add?
Okay. It's Picasso that said, inspiration happens. It helps if it finds you working. And that's it. That's it. I think one of the most seminal moments for me as an artist was the day I was finally able to drag the trash barrel up to the front door and just empty 24 canvases into it. When I found out that I could throw stuff away, then it really helped me to just keep putting stuff on the canvas.
How many of you walk around with a notebook and record things? I want to, but I don't. And Janet, anything to add?
Oh, it's just that I think probably everybody who's in this discussion, it's, I can't exactly say it's a problem, but it's, you know, the desire to do art is so incredibly strong that I think all of us find ways to do it. I remember quite a few years ago, I had to paint in my living room. That's the only place I could paint. And I would paint behind 4 boys playing video games and fighting with each other. But it was the only, and I did it like between basketball and some other sport I had to drive them to. But it, like the desire to paint was just like so strong. And it was only when they started really super fighting with each other and saying that someone had to go home that they would be quiet. But somehow you just managed to make your way through, right? Through everything, because everybody has to get through to be able to keep doing their art, right?
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
You know, I've known quite a few people that had a great deal of talent, but didn't do the art, whatever it was. And my role model really was my father, who was a composer of serious music. And every single day he got up and sat at the piano and worked on his music. And he didn't get recognition for it. I think he made $400 in his entire lifetime from his music. But he did it. And I've known several other artists who worked through zero recognition and through great difficulty. Not that the difficulties are any good, but it's the doing, it's the just the perseverance and doing it.
Isn't that part of being an artist? You can't not do it.
Yes.
So what are your goals for the future? What are you looking forward to?
Life list?
No, I don't need your life list. Just with your art. What are you hoping to accomplish down, in the next few months, few years? Some of you have potentially more time than others.
It's the pursuit of essence. I'm a representational artist seeking to become less representational.
Okay, tell me what that means.
What I mean is that I'm looking for the part that counts and discarding the part that doesn't count.
Yeah.
That's all.
And Jamie, you just moved here recently, relatively recently, as did
Yes.
Bill, but what are you hoping for? What are you working on?
Well, having to move here, the first step is to, I'm basically reestablishing my career on my own. So having the opportunity to show at this exhibition is a great first step. This has created finally a momentum now that I'm starting to get more settled in. And to me, like a 5 to 10 year goal to me is like, I want book and I want to eventually transcend into museums. I want to push the boundary of the installation work of the 2D painting versus 3D sculpture versus environments and this process of materials. A lot of it is used by installation foam carving, which is something that I had actually picked up through ice and stone carving in Scandinavia. And becoming a sculptor, I didn't have that material and I couldn't afford it when I came back to the States, coming from a clay background. So I ended up finding at Home Depot this really cheap installation foam and started to build installation foam blocks and started to carve away from them. And I've been giving workshops and teaching, and some schools and community center art centers in West Palm Beach have been very open to this new type of sculpture. And part of that is to avoid it from going into like a prop design, theater design, and more, balancing that, and then kind of having a creative art look to it. And I feel in an academic environment, that's what I want to push, maybe open up students to that are interested in sculpture. They're looking for other materials and other ways to carve. So, I would love to push that even more. And I think that West Palm Beach and South Florida so far, they seem very interested in allowing me to experiment in that, because I don't know a lot of universities or any schools or art centers that are doing installation foam carving and sculpture. And it's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that's kind of like what I want to keep doing and pushing. So I have very, very high goals, but why not shoot high?
Why not?
Right.
You should. Janet?
Oh, I just want to keep on keeping on, to be honest with you. I've been painting for a long time, but I seldom had the means or opportunity to show my work. And now I have more of an opportunity to try to show it. So I am trying to push myself to apply to more shows and get my work seen more. But it's not, painting is much more my forte than marketing. Let's just put it that way.
Spoken like a true artist. And Sarah?
Yeah, I'm hoping in the next several years, I have several shows coming up, like group shows, but I have not had a solo show since grad school. So I'm hoping in the next several years that I'll have that kind of an opportunity. And I hope that my practice continues to grow and deepen in whatever direction it happens to take. I didn't originally think that I was gonna incorporate fiber, and now I'm like deep into a fibers hole. So we'll see where it goes.
And you're going to come home with more fiber in your baskets. And apologize to your husband. Bill, you already spoke up briefly about this. Anything you want to add?
Well, I want to do some more landscapes in Alaska. And I want to do some landscapes on the rivers on St. Lucie River. I think it's really beautiful, and just brought my canoe down from Alaska, which wasn't doing me any good there. So I'm going to go out in the river. And
so are you going back and forth between Florida and Alaska, or are you just?
I go to Alaska a couple of times in the summer.
Right.
Up once to paint on a glacier in the big mountains, which is really different from Florida.
Yeah.
And then I also go up in the late summer to paint in this huge national park called Wrangell St. Elias that nobody's heard of, but it's 30% bigger than Switzerland.
Yeah.
I've got, when I talked about lifeless, I have a stash of materials that I would like to use for serious art projects before I get used up.
Right.
I'm almost 80, so I had a very, very bad accident about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and almost died. And so I figure I'm not immortal. So I've got huge pieces of art heirloom wood, and I've got some huge pieces of metal. I carve metal. That's another one of my things. And I'd like to execute my art with these materials.
Terrific. Final little thing. I'm going to go around. My greatest hope is that someone listening to this is inspired in their own creativity. But I'm sure in many respects, we've only touched the surface. We've only looked at one example of your art. So starting with you, Marty, I'm not going to ask how people can get in touch with you, but how can people learn more? Do you have a website? And this is the same question for all of you, so be thinking of this. Do you have a website? Do you have Instagram, website, Facebook? So if someone's interested, they could jot it down.
Yes, I have a website. It's martydownartist.com.
That's DUNN, right?
Yes. And as far as social media is concerned, it's kind of a funny story. I saw that Netflix original a couple of years ago, and based on that, I dropped off of social media. But I just had the conversation with my best friend, and we've decided that it's a necessary evil. So yeah, I've got an Instagram and a Facebook account, and they're right now they just direct you to the website, but in the next week or so, they'll be getting resurrected.
Well, good for you, I guess. Sarah, do you have a website?
I do, and also an Instagram, and they're both my full name, Sarah Blacksadler.
SarahBlacksadler.
Yep, that's it.
Oh, there it is. If I move my cursor, it pops up. And Jamie, what about you?
Okay, so my website is just under construction, so I hope to have it finished maybe in about 2 to 3 weeks. So it will be the jrodelement.com. Jamie Rodriguez, so jrodelement.com. And from there, I don't have any Instagram or Facebook right now, but that's my main focus. So like I said, if anyone remembers that, hopefully
is it J-Rod with a dash between the J and the R? Is it?
No, it's just going to be JROD.
Okay. I love the name. I really do.
Marketing.
Yeah. And what about you, Bill?
Yeah, I've got a website, billbrody.com, billbrodyartist.com. I've got Facebook. I think it's AW Brody on Facebook, and Instagram is AW Brody, I think. But anyway, I'm on both platforms, and I put my art up when I do a new piece. I put them up generally on Facebook, sometimes on Facebook and Instagram both.
Terrific. And Janet?
Actually, I am on Instagram at JEG Folsom, FOLSOM, like the prison, JEG Folsom at gmail.com.
Just like the prison.
Well, everyone knows that Johnny Cash song. If you're
Great
old
song.
enough.
Yeah.
Folsom Prison Blues.
Well, our hour is up. I cannot thank you enough. I really can't. I've had a great deal of fun. I've learned a lot. I hope you've learned from each other, and the folks listening and watching have learned as well. Jennifer, I don't know if there are any questions that people have put up on chat. I haven't looked at that, but is there anything else, or is it a good time to sign off?
Well, I don't have any questions in the chat, but since we do have 2 attendees here with us, we can open it up to them if they have any questions. John, Margarita, do you have anything to add or ask any of our artists?
Presumably John is the husband of Sarah.
Yeah. Yep.
So be careful, John.
Exactly. Yeah. How do we get less
So
materials? No, I just want to thank you all. It's really always fun to see like different art, different people. So I appreciate you taking time out of your evening. I know everybody's got lives, so that's all. No questions, but I appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks, John.
Well, and I will say the same. Thank you, John, for bringing that up. And I do see a chat here from Margarita that she enjoyed the conversation as well. So thank you all. And since this will be recorded and posted to our website, I do have to add our website is martinarts.org. This will be listed under the Courthouse Cultural Center for now in the upcoming and current exhibition area. And once the show is over, in person here on November 18th, we'll switch it over to our past. But of course, if you're in town in Stuart, please come by the gallery and view all of the pieces in our show. There are 45 beautiful pieces in total by 45 artists across the state of Florida. And if you can't make it in, you can visit our virtual gallery on our website and the exhibition page as well. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you for
and
having us.
for
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very
for
much.
being the brains behind all this. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Duncan.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Nice to
evening.
meet you all.
You too.